Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. I am a huge fan of Advanced Heroquest, and I have set myself the ridiculous, foolhardy task of trying to collect one of each Oldhammer miniature featured anywhere in any Advanced Heroquest product. That's all of the miniatures for the monsters in the pull-out section in the core rules, all the miniatures featured on the box, all the miniatures in the Terror in the Dark expansion, all the miniatures in the paint set, and all of the miniatures featured in any of the White Dwarf articles about the game. And, now I guess, I will also need Oldhammer miniatures for all of the new enemies included in the outtakes from Terror in the Dark, which I talked about in my last video. That is a lot of heavy metal, and as I am sure you can appreciate, it doesn't come cheap. That being the case, this is a long-term project. I pick up miniatures here and there when I see them at good prices and when my budget allows for it. And I am resigned to the fact I may never have a complete set of everything. But occasionally, generous viewers will donate miniatures to the channel and I get just a little bit closer to my goal. And that brings us to the subject of today's video. I have recently been able to add some new Oldhammer miniatures to my collection thanks to a generous donation from viewer Benjamin Connell. Benjamin got in contact to say he had a selection of classic Ratmen in his possession that he would like to pass my way. And while some of them aren't featured in any of the Advanced Heroquest photographs, they are all period accurate and valuable additions to any decent dungeon. Benjamin, it should be noted, is rather fond of rodents, as he has been pouring his creative talents into making his own role-playing game called Heroes of the Abbey, inspired by the wonderful Redwall series by Brian Jacques, and drawing on the rules from various editions of Dungeons & Dragons. If you dream of low adventures in a world of no magic, this might be for you, as you take on the role of a furry critter like a mouse or mole and go on perilous quests. You can find out more and order a copy through DriveThruRPG by checking out the link in the video description below. You will also find a link to Benjamin's Instagram account. Now, to the matter at hand. I hear scuttling feet in the darkness of the dungeon. Our first miniature is a Jess Goodwin classic from 1987. You will find this listed as either a 4406 Clan Moulder Beastmaster or a 4461 Clan Moulder Packmaster. But for Advanced Heroquest fans, it is simply a Skaven Beastmaster from the Trollslayer's Oath adventure which appeared in White Dwarf 134. I actually already have one of these miniatures in my collection, but Benjamin insisted I take another. After all, you can never have too many Packmasters, especially when you have been infested with giant rats. This is a set of the 4461 Skaven giant rats, and in the good old days you could get these in blisters along with their Packmaster handlers. Ah, I do miss blister packs. I have said it before, I will say it again. I used to love going into my not so local Games Workshop and perusing the racks of hangers, peering into each blister to see which mixture of metal miniatures they contained. Although Citadel made quite a few different rats, there were only 5 designs in the 4461 set, and we have all 5 here plus a duplicate. Benjamin painted these miniatures when he was younger, and his inspiration for the colour scheme came from his own pet rats, Chitter and Chatter, which is why one of the rats is predominantly white. And I have to say, this is one of the lovely things about collecting old miniatures. They are little snapshots of history. Not just of the games, but of the people who played those games. Here we have miniatures painted with intent, inspired by the love of family pets. That's special. I won't lie, I will eventually strip and repaint the rats, and I do always feel a little bad when I erase someone else's work that way, but I will certainly make sure one of these rats is still predominantly white, with a little white hood. Incidentally, there were no giant rat enemies in Advanced Heroquest, although there was a rat hazard encounter, so I can use these metal miniatures to represent that hazard should it occur. However, there are unpublished rules for giant rats which I have talked about in my recent video on outtakes from Terror in the Dark. If you haven't caught that video, you will find a link in the video description below. Finally, I have 4 miniatures from the C47 Skaven command group from 1987, all sculpted by, rather unsurprisingly, Jess Goodwin. His Skaven are the best. Only one of these appears in published Advanced Heroquest materials that I am aware of, but they are all beautiful sculpts and quality additions to any dungeon where you need special characters. First, this is the C47 Blight Packmaster, which appeared in the Trollslayer's Oath adventure in White Dwarf 134 as the Clanmore's Warlord Shaffet. This is a really great miniature with a lovely pose. You get that really strong horizontal line thanks to the pointing arm and a wide open stance that will make painting much easier. He is joined by Steench, his faithful, or more likely, knowing Skaven, unfaithful banner bearer. He has a similar sort of pose to Shaffet, and in fact a similar pose to many Skaven of the time. You will notice they tend to have a planar design. This is so they could be cast as single pieces. It also makes them easier to form into ranks, and while some people will see that as a limitation of the process and will point to it as an indicator of these miniatures being inferior to modern sculpts, it's all part of the charm for me. Necessity is the mother of invention, and as with old movies, often the limitations imposed on creators by technology of the time is what allows them to showcase their true talent. Moving on, we have Warp Scream the Musician, who looks like he has given up on the idea of beating his drum to lump some unwary hero with the drumstick instead. There are no musicians in Advanced Heroquest, but I think it would be fun to have an encounter where a musician drums a group of Skaven into a wild frenzy. It could be a fun challenge for the heroes to overcome. And finally, we have the aptly named The Butcher. This chap is great, and his injuries, upgrades and mutations speak of a hard life. I particularly like his little scorpion tail, which is just a bit weird. He's pretty tall for a Skaven, which is fitting for his status as a champion, and the hook lets you know that unlike most Skaven, he isn't going to back down from a fight. Or maybe he just got caught with his paws in the cookie jar once too often. Who knows? One thing about these Oldhammer miniatures, which I have mentioned before, is that often body parts were reused. The sculptor would use a main torso section and then just make different arms and heads. That is why the Butcher has a twin brother who is already in my collection, Warpeye. You can see that from the wristbands to the toes they are almost identical, but they have different hands and heads, different tail toppers, and different charms hanging off their belts. It's pretty neat because they still look visually distinct, they are their own characters, but Jess Goodwin was able to cut down on his workload. And there is actually a third miniature using this same body type. It's called Razortail. Once again, the hands, head, tail and charm are changed while everything else remains the same. Maybe I will be able to pick him up one day and I can run these three as a trio of unpleasant siblings. But that is it for now. We are all caught up on my latest influx of miniatures that it will be, goodness knows how long until I can actually find the time to paint. Thank you once again to Benjamin Connell, and thank you for watching. Do remember to check out the link to Benjamin's work for Heroes of the Abbey in the video description below, and as always, if you like the video, please consider pressing that like button. If you really like the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.